Welcome to Control Talk Now, your smart buildings podcast with Ken Smyers and Eric Stromquist. Control news you can use. And now, here's your hosts, Ken and Eric.
Welcome to Control Talk Now for the week ending January 4th, 2015. That is right. It is a new year on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings podcast. I am joined, as usual, by the man, the myth, the legend, the one, the only Kenny Smyers from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Kenny, welcome to the show, big dog.
Thank you, Eric. Always a pleasure to be here, but I know you're being nice to me because Pittsburgh Steelers got crushed last night by the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm feeling bad about that.
Hey, dude, you made the playoffs. The Falcons didn't even get close, so feel good about that for you guys. Now, hey, it's an interesting football season, and boy, what upsets on the college scenes. Who would have thought that Alabama would have fallen to Ohio State? I know our friend Pete Walsh at Columbus Temperature Controls is doing backflips. And sure. I kind of predicted, I kind of could see Oregon taking out Florida State. So good stuff there, Kenny. But, hey, we got a whole new year. Can you believe it's 2015 already?
Eric, time's going by so fast, and it's been quite a year. That's why it's so fun to do these shows, because we get to go back and review some of the incredible things that happened in the year 2014 and look forward to another year, 2015. And these documentations that we do are great because they bookmark some of the important events and industry trends that we're very fond of tracking and presenting to the ControlTrends community.
Well, absolutely, Kenny. And I think that what we want to do with this show, we didn't have many posts this week. Both, it was kind of quiet. I was doing some vacation time, so we didn't get a whole lot of post up, but I think it'd be a great opportunity, Kenny, to sort of go back. Let's spend a few minutes and talk about the year that was. And we do have two guests that are coming on a little bit later in the show. We have George Thomas from Contemporary Controls coming on, as well as one of our young guns, Jason Houck from Hepta Systems. But Kenny, 2014, what a year, big dog. What a year. I tell you what, it's when I think about 2014 and I think about me and you and what we did this last year, reminds me of one of our favorite books, On the Road by Jack Kerouac. You and I both enjoyed that book a lot. It's about some young guys traveling across the country back in the 50s, sort of started the Beat generation, if you would, and these guys just had a big time. And you and I spent quite a bit of time on the road this year, so what do you say we review a couple of those trips we took?
Well, certainly, Eric. But on the road, the first trip we took was to the ControlTrends 2013 Awards in New York City at the AHR show. That was at the B.B. King Blues Club, and it was an extraordinary event. We got a whole bunch of great posts and archives in there, and every once in a while I'll just go back through it. But that 7 minutes video that we did, that Vlad did, was so amazing. The people captured the talent we had there, Marilyn Monroe, and we had the Frank Sinatra impersonator, and I'll tell you what, it was a great show. That started off the year in January. So
it was a great show, Kenny. It really was. And Marilyn Monroe. If you haven't seen that, go check those out. We got some great highlight videos. The ControlTrends Awards. It was our second ControlTrends Awards. We got to acknowledge the superstars in our industry. Felt like we stepped it up a notch, Kenny. We're going to step it up a notch again in Chicago, but we contended with a huge snowstorm, which the show was actually sold out, Kenny, but because we were sort of off-site a little bit, only about a quarter of the people actually made it to that show. A lot of people couldn't get into New York for the AHR shows, so that was a huge event. And along with that, Kenny, we also got to film Ken Sinclair's first collaborative community conference there at the AHR show. Yeah,
sure, and that was a very interesting. In fact, collaboration took on a new dimension for 2014. I think it was one of those years of collaboration where you had inside organizations asking for help outside the organization. The whole spirit of collaboration was evident in a lot of successful product implementations where you had, say, the Niagara 4. It was a great collaboration where they went out and did a whole bunch of beta testing, got a whole bunch of the user community, the integration community to try to improve things before it was actually released. So, yep, it was a year of collaboration.
Yeah, and I think, Kenny, that's the theme we're sort of noting. We'll talk more about it in the show. If you listen to our John Sublett interview last week, John Sublett from Tritium, he talked a lot about collaboration. So one of the sort of the themes that Kenny and I have started tracking, one of the trends is that you compete and die, or you collaborate and survive. And it doesn't mean that you still don't compete, because you're always going to compete. But the people you compete with could also be your collaborators. So that requires sort of a different thought process, a different mentality. And I think we'll continue to track that trend. But I think we saw it starting, Kenny, in 2014. I think we'll see it continue throughout. So we'll keep tabs on that. And Kenny, from there, where was our next trip? We got a little cold there, so what did we do? We went out west.
We went out west, Eric. We went out to California, San Diego, actually at Carlsbad, and met up with a gentleman named Anthony Bronzo, a very intelligent young man. Tell us a little bit about Anthony.
Well, Anthony's a guy that I've known for years, Kenny. He is a social media expert, and Anthony lives out there. He is also the founder of a company called ControlTalk. They actually advertise on the ControlTrends website. So we got to spend some great time with Anthony out there. Anthony's a very, very bright guy. He was actually on a couple of social media podcasts or video casts, Google Hangouts we did earlier in the year. So I think a lot of Anthony. So it was great spending some time with him. And boy, California is beautiful out there. So we got to go sort of up and down the coast a little bit with Anthony. He showed us around a bit. And oddly enough, Kenny, he lives in Carlsbad, where your daughter lives.
An amazing coincidence how many people that we needed to see were in that with about a 40-mile radius, because we also went to two other meetings. We met Jim Young, and we also met the CGNA people, went to the CGNA Conference.
Yeah, we had a great opportunity with Jim Young. As you know, we think the world of Jim, Realcomm, IBcon. We'll talk more about his conference a little bit later in the show. But so we got to actually have a coffee with Jim Young, and Jim is kind of like, I think he's one of the prophets of our industry. And Jim sort of looked at us and said, hey, 2014 is going to be the year that changes everything. I think he recommended that we sell our distribution businesses. Got us both shook up a little bit. But as you'll see, as we discuss more about 2014, I'm not sure that Jim is too far off with some of his predictions. Like a lot of prophets, he is out in the future looking back. So good stuff there. And then from there, we went to Controls Group North America. We covered that conference. Controls Group North America, Kenny, is a group of 40 of the top distributors in the country, and we meet twice a year. Like-minded, some of the greats like Terry Turner and Brian Turner from Control Co., Scott Cochran, his brother Don from Cochran Supply, guys like John Pitaluga from Engineering Systems down in Florida, Pat Marcella, M&M Controls, John Donahue, Controls Consultants, Rick Jones, Wilson Moore. It's pretty much a who's who of who the really, really top distributors in the country are. So we went out, we covered that conference. It was great. We got to spend time at the trade show there, interviewed several people there. Unfortunately, Kenny, as I had a new camera, I wasn't quite adept at it yet, so most of that stuff didn't turn out well video-wise, but needless to say, it was a great conference. You can actually find a CGNA distributor in your area. We have a link on the ControlTrends website. So if you're in another part of the country outside of Pittsburgh, where you got Ken Smyers and his brother Dave, DMS Controls, or Georgia or Florida with us, Stromquist and Company, a good source for you is a CGNA distributor, and there's a link right there on the ControlTrends website. So Kenny, we got in the car in San Diego, we spent some time out there, and then we drove to Las Vegas. Tell them what we were doing in Las Vegas, big dog.
Oh, Eric, that was a great trip. That was to the 2014 Niagara Summit, and that was from the 27th of April to the 29th. And we got to meet some great people out there: Jenny Graves, Nina DeCosmo, John Sublett, Vinay Prakash, and Wayne. Amazing people from the Tritium Niagara community. It was a great conference. Had all kinds of great things that we reported on.
Yeah, a special thanks to Jenny Graves, because Jenny actually picked our expenses up to go cover that conference. We loved it. It was great. We brought our video team with us, Kenny, so we got some good video footage. If you want to get a feel for what a Niagara Summit's like, go check those posts out. You can hit the archives button, go back to, I think that was, we're posting those in April and May, Kenny, so you go April, May, you can see that. We got to do our first interview, or actually our second interview with Nino DeCosmo. We got to interview Pranay Prakash. Jenny Graves, we got to interview her. We got to do some filming we actually filmed a ControlTalk Now from their big social event right there at one of the nightclubs at the Cosmopolitan Hotel, Kenny. They rented a nightclub out. That was spectacular. So we got to do that. We really, I think, captured, the Niagara 4, what's coming up with that, the spirit of it. If you ever need a reason to go to a Niagara Summit, just look at those videos, check them out.
All right, next up we had the Realcomm IBcon 2014 in Las Vegas.
So we went back to Vegas again in June, right?
It was hot. That was a different set of circumstances. I remember the sun was so incredible. I could see why people loved Las Vegas in the cold months in the east and come out there. But in the West Coast in the summertime, July, it is hot. I could see. It is, yeah. All the golfers were off the course by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, for sure. And that was Jim Young, Howard Berger, Lisa Woods invited us out to that conference. It was our second IBcon Realcomm, and I tell you, Kenny, they just keep getting better. It's a who's who of not just the technology providers, Kenny, but also of potential customers. So the top real estate people are there, and boy, did we pick up on a trend there. We sort of hit a lightning bolt hit at that conference. And let's talk about the surprise we had there, which kind of got us concerned a little bit, and it's a trend we're tracking, which is other people coming to play in our sandbox. So talk about some of the people that showed up and some of the hubbub that was going around.
All right, yeah, Eric, we had Google, Intel, Dell, Microsoft all up on the stage telling the world that they were going to get into the building envelope space. They had new technologies. The IoT developments they had were going to come in and disrupt our standard building management and BAS and BMS businesses, and they sure have. They made an immediate impact. Google buys Nest. Intel partners with Daikin. Dell starts a service company. Microsoft is just the leader in many things, but their campus is their proving grounds. So they know what they're doing with building automation and data aggregation and efficiencies. And operation was the big word that came out of it. It's not just energy savings. It's not just squeezing the energy sponge so that you're most efficient. That's a good thing to start, but actually the incredible savings occur in the operational sides.
Well, they really do. So the operational savings is part of it, but the big trend, like I said, I co-hosted a breakout session with Ken Sinclair from AutomatedBuildings.com. Boy, I tell you what, the Intel gentleman got up and spoke, and he was not bashful at all. He was talking about how they already have the information embedded in the chips that are in the controllers. And wow, I mean, that got a lot of people's attention. He was talking about things like IT security. They've already got that handled, that they can turn a job around. And what did he say? It was phenomenal the amount of time that he was promising they could turn a job around, and got people's attention, got people shook up, got me and you shook up. And then at a session you were speaking at, you had Kevin Fasinelli from Daikin.
Yeah, Daikin Applied, yes.
Yeah, Daikin Applied. I think we got a post later in the show that we'll talk about where they're actually using that Intel technology. So I don't think it's just talk, Kenny. It seems to be coming home to roost. Google was there. They're talking about, I think, a comment the gentleman made. We've got a video of them up on stage talking. His comment was, we don't want the whole world, just the parts we want. And, of course, they're buying a Nest. Was an interesting. They paid a lot of money for that, and so one of our insiders out in Silicon Valley indicated that they're using that to create context or a place for really sort of bringing everything together under one thing. So Google's in the game, Intel's in the game, Microsoft's been in the game, Dell apparently has its own systems integrators now. They're looking at doing things soup to nuts. So the question becomes, are these people going to come in and take over the sandbox, or are we going to be able to collaborate with them? So be interested to know your thoughts and comments. This is something that Ken and I will be tracking going forward. But I don't know, Kenny, I don't think they're going to go away. I think the question becomes, are we going to be able to play with them and collaborate with them, or are they playing all or nothing?
Well, it's like you said, Eric, there's the collaboration concept will prevail. if everybody goes in and just tries to take the market or certain markets themselves, like Daikin, for instance, they're coming in with equipment. They've got a new rooftop unit that they worked with Intel. They have an intelligent gateway that takes 3G and takes the data from the rooftop unit. Instead of pushing it into the building management system, into the network, IT network involvement, they send it right out to the cloud, so that it's going right to a whole new set of players. It's not being incorporated into the building management system. It's going into a monitoring station. It's going into some technicians' review, where if the performance starts to get bad because they got the information, they could do service tickets right from there. So they're pointing the direction of travel for this data, this aggregation of information. Instead of being brought back into the system through IT and all the issues that involves, they take it right to their own version of it. And so they're going to be successful to a certain extent, but they can have greater success if they involve the larger parts of the community. And we had one or two opportunities to dialogue with these people, but it's still in progress. I think we have to get almost like geological time. You have to get some kind of perspective of how fast things can be done and how things don't happen that quick. It appears you get the sensation, the concern, the change causes immediate distress. But I think the reality is that there's opportunities that if you know about it, you can maneuver and come out comfortable as far as the future business.
Well, one of the quotes that I come back to, and one of the guys we quote a lot on this show, our friend Scott Cochran from Cochran Supply, he sort of made a comment, hey, at the end of the day, it's still about moving air and water. And, so there's always going to be a need for our type people there. So I think it really gets back to that collaboration theme. How are you going to collaborate? How are you going to make yourself valuable to other players? So that was one big thing we tracked. Another thing at that conference, Kenny, you got to interview Dave Lorenzini, the inventor of Google Glasses. Talk a bit about that.
Well, we had a couple amazing opportunities. That was one of them. We met up with, he's a visionary entrepreneur that changing the way people look at the world. So David Lorenzini commented on the explosion of the intelligent building interactions at a level never seen before, and the amazing adoption of technology. So he's saying how, again, the geological time issue where nothing happens for a long time, and all of a sudden, in a short span, you have all this disruption coming and all this contextualization, and then boom, he was the guy that introduced the first global 3D visualization systems. And now they're talking about things, Eric, that wind up being this wearable technology that's going to be the new service tools used for multiple industries. It's already alive and well in the medical industry and the gas and oil industry, so that you've got a guy wearing intelligent wearable technology, and he's communicating back through around the world to somebody that's giving him assistance.
Well, I think that's the theme, Kenny. We called it then, which is I don't know what we call it, the wearable technology, how it's going to change, how you staff your people and how you do service work. There's actually videos on ControlTrends of a guy, for example, working in the oil fields. He's got Google Glasses on. You got another guy back at headquarters that's giving this guy instructions. He's saying, all right, go close that valve over there. Nope, not that valve, the one to the right of it. Okay, now look at where the gauge is. Okay, now adjust it back here, do this. Okay, do that. So now start thinking about, because one of the challenges Kenny and I saw in 2012 and 2013 is how do you get more competent systems integrators? How do we get them trained? It's something I think we're still going to have to address. But does it get easier with wearable technology? In other words, can you take a guy like a Rick Warner, who is a master systems integrator, who's been on the show many, many times, and get a guy like Rick Warner then send pretty good people with screwdrivers or computers out. They have their Google Glasses on. He could be sitting back looking at 7 or 8 different monitors while his team's out in the field talking him through, telling him what to do. Is that going to change the game? Are enlightened service contractors going to start using this technology in such a way, Kenny, that it just changes it all? So now you don't have to pay maybe to have, these superstar, because every company has 1 or 2 superstars that are the go-to guys, but they can just go so far. But now you can be able to leverage those through wearable technology. So love to hear your thoughts and comments on that. And what is your wearable technology of choice? Would it be glasses? Would it be a smartphone? Would it be a GoPro on your head? Who knows? But that was a huge piece, Kenny. And along those same lines, we got to see the drones. The drones are coming, right? So that was another IBcon Realcomm thing, and Jim Young, Howard Berger, Lisa Woods type thing, bringing that technology in. We have several videos up on how drones are being used not just in our industry, but in a lot of industry. So Kenny, speak a bit about that if you would. That was cool stuff, huh?
Yeah, we sure did, Eric. We had an opportunity to meet with the gentleman that founded his name was AJ Jolavetti from TerraSAR, and it was the coolest way to do instant visibility and assessment. So it's something like is an asset for every police and fire department, every security company, every college and corporate campus, park and recreation facilities, ski resorts, golf courses can use these drones now instead of people in carts going around to do that immediate assessment. And that's what it's all about: is do we have an emergency? Is it an emergency that needs immediate response? Because what it does then is it makes everything more efficient. So the fire department can send out a drone and find out if the house is on fire or it's a false alarm. And instead of rolling the trucks, they get to that immediate assessment that a drone can do. So really cool stuff. And then the second one, tell us about the little robot that.
Well, hang on. I'm not done with the drone yet. So, yeah, one of the people, Kenny, that you interviewed, Lindsay Baker from Company Systems, at one of your breakout sessions, was talking about in San Francisco. There's actually a taco drop that in a certain area of San Francisco, they use a drone to deliver tacos, drop them at your house, which is a cool application. But the videos we showed, Kenny, actually shows like a drone going up, for example, to check drains on a roof to see if the drains are clogged, and actually shows that drone coming down and sort of blowing some of the leaves out of a drain pipe. That's one. Another is a security call. The drone goes out and is able to visually, through a camera, send back the information to your security people to see if there's a severe threat there. So there's just multiple uses there. Another one, somebody locked their keys in the car, and as opposed to going to the roof to send the keys there, they just put them on the drone and drop them off. So I think the drones are going to be a key piece going forward in technology. And I think it gets back to this whole thing, Kenny, about what you mentioned earlier, the Realcomm IBcon. The theme is it's about the operational savings, not just the energy savings. So I think we're going to see more and more savvy real estate people focusing on how they can save operationally. This gets back to the cloud, using the cloud, gets back to using data, it gets back to using things like the drone. So operational savings, I think, is going to be a major driver for real estate people making investments in the future. So that being said, Kenny, you got to interview another guy with a really cool product. Talk a little bit about that.
It sure was, Eric. The technology was just mind-blowing because this was the Spin robot, and it's the Sanborn platform for indoor mapping. The gentleman's name was Sharad Oberoi, and it was from Team Sanborn. Now, this is the Spin is a semi-autonomous mobile robot platform designed exclusively for indoor mapping applications. Yeah, here we go. It's a cool robot that is using advances in 3D technologies and self-navigating. It's easy to operate. You put it in at the front of the building and let it go. You come back 8 hours later, and it's got the whole thing mapped out. It's great for businesses, engineering, government, natural resources, telecommunications, and other utility sectors. So, and it was introduced at the Realcomm right after we did the drone. So, I mean, we're just getting drenched with technology.
All right. So, Kenny, after that, we had an opportunity to go to Louisville, Kentucky. Tell our listeners what we were doing there.
Oh, Eric, it was another great experience and great coverage. A lot of people were very interested in the company was called ISA, International Systems of America, and their phrase is it's a system that works, and we say it works and it grows. And we did a couple scenarios out there in front of it. There was a great interview with the national sales manager, Julio Rodriguez, and the president and CEO, Mike Epperson.
They're good stuff. They're sponsors for the ControlTrends Awards. Really appreciate them. They really fill a need in our marketplace. If you don't have the money in the budget to upgrade, you can use these guys so you get the money in. Great folks, great company. Really appreciate their hospitality. All right, so Kenny, we got to go up to Montreal, Canada, made a little road trip at the invitation of Luis Magalhaes from Neptronic. Tell us a little bit about that. That was a great trip, huh?
Sure was. Well, first of all, thank you for being platinum sponsors, Neptronic. They have a rich history of HVAC industry, beginning with the earliest adoption and advancement of the direct coupled actuator in the North American market. Neptronic also introduced the first ball valve. They also introduced the capacitance fail-safe feature, 1996 patent, and And they won the coveted 2014 HR Expo Innovative Award for the SKD humidifier. So, I mean, it's a private corporation that designs, manufactures, and distributes HVAC products around the world. Really
good
great
stuff, good stuff, and great hospitality up there. You can see them at the 2014 ControlTrends Awards in Chicago. But that was a great trip, Kenny. And then from there, we got the call to go overseas. So EasyIO gave us a call. They asked us to come cover their worldwide conference in Madrid, Spain. But before we did that, in on-the-road fashion, we stopped in London, England, and we went to see our friend Mike Welch. Tell us a little bit about that trip, Kenny.
Oh, that was an amazing visit there to UK smart building dolly experts, Mike Welch and Graham Turner. And ControlTrends became, I mean, we were actually greeted, it was really a neat thing because they had a very nice setup. We got to see a great demonstration of the dolly, which stands for Digital Addressable Lighting Interface. And it's big in Europe, and we got to hear from Mike his perception of what the limiting factors were of why it isn't successful in the North American market. But it's it's for the Niagara AX Systems Integrator. This is a no-brainer because you incorporate the Dali technology right into their solutions. So in Control Network Solutions, Mike Welsh, he's just a very smart guy, and he's really passionate about the Dali lighting system.
Very much so. And so one of the questions is, can Dali catch on in North America? That'll be a trend that Kenny and I'll track. And from there, Kenny, we spent the weekend in Paris. We got in all kinds of trouble there. I've still got some videos. I'm wondering whether I should post or not, but big times there. And then from there on to Madrid, Spain, and the EasyIO Worldwide Conference. What a fantastic get-together. Talk a bit about that, if you would, Kenny. What were some of your impressions?
Well, I'll tell you, again, there was a lot of advanced work done there by the EasyIO Europe people. You had Johan Shakarad and the other gentleman, I'm going to get his name in a second, but there were people from South Africa, India, Netherlands, Canada, Norway, UK, all over the world. It was an international flavor that I wasn't familiar with for a while. I lived in Germany for 9 years, but Guido van Erp was the other gentleman that, and Mike Marston and Lim Hoonjat, they put together.
And Gordon Chen.
Well, yeah, Gordon was there as well. You're right, but it was just it was business, and it was also high level networking, and then we had some fun. I mean, they took us to a Real Madrid soccer game. They took us to an incredible tour of that soccer stadium, and I think they're the winningest franchise in sports history, aren't they?
Well, they are. At least according to them, they are. And I think that the takeaway there is that EasyIO not only makes great products, boy, do they know how to do a worldwide conference. We made friends from all over the world. I think the funny story, Kenny, that I tell that didn't make sense to me at all, I'd be looking for you. I get on the bus or something, and I go, has anybody seen Kenny? And these Europeans or Indians go, Kenny's dead. He. I mean, I must have got that 15, 20 times. And I told my wife about it. And they all watch South Park, because I guess there's a show called South Park, and Kenny and Eric are two characters on South Park. And every show, apparently, Kenny gets murdered. So we had a big time with that. But Kenny, I tell you, the thing that I got from that is Controls business is kind of the same all over the world. Virtually everybody we talked to was up 20 to 30 to 40%, which is what we typically, when we talk to people over here, 2014 was a banner year. It seemed like the economy turned, the money came loose, and people in our industry did really, really well. So it was just great to hear that. To get to interview the engineers from India was phenomenal, to hear about that market. And the biggest challenge they face over there, quite candidly, Kenny, is training. How do you get them trained? But
it was amazing. I just have some of the guys we actually interviewed was Hoist Energy's Tommy Hagenes and Runar Soli.
Right.
And then we also had the gentleman from Down Under, Chris Schneider. Oh yeah, he's talking about smart guys. And then we just went on, like you said, the gentleman we had from India kind of really enlightened us to how big the world markets are. We had Vinayak Sain he's a principal consultant and chief technical architect in the Mumbai area. He was among his colleagues, at least 3 or 4 or 5 of them, all really truly told the story like it is, and that is that they've got 100 cities that they need to make smart in 5 years. They've got an incredible budget already set aside by the Prime Minister of India. So we're going to do this because they've got big grid issues. They've got big problems, and they're one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So the only way they can do this is to really get everybody on the same sheet of paper, and they're going to use the Niagara AX platform and EasyIO to deal with all this stuff. And they really liked EasyIO for 2, 3, 4 good reasons, and they were the tool that they need was into the FG32, the training and support that Lim and his guys provide from EasyIO, and 3 was that the speeds of the EasyIO FG32 was a beast because it had the latest and greatest technologies that they were familiar with. They want to start at their foundation on the newest technology available. So.
That was great stuff, Kenny. And I tell you, one of the highlights of the year for me, we actually did a Control Talk Now from Madrid, Spain. And our guest included the aforementioned Mike Marston, Lim, the gentleman from South Africa, Guido, and several other people. So definitely check that out. That was a really interesting Control Talk Now because we got a lot of different perspectives from a lot of different people. So big trip there. Special thanks to EasyIO for that. We really appreciate it. We also appreciate EasyIO's continued sponsorship of the ControlTrends Awards. And after that, Kenny, it was I think one more trip for me, which was the Belimo Platinum meeting in St. Kitts, which was amazing. Belimo keeps coming out with great products, and we saw some Belimo stuff at the European meeting too. So, and congratulations to Belimo. They moved to their new facility, Mount Belimo, in 2014, which was a highlight. And, Kenny, there's a lot more we can talk about, but from 2014. But let's try to break it down to 3 or 4 trends that you saw, and let's nail that. And then we got to move on to the rest of the show because we got 2 people to talk to.
Well, and we also got to talk about some of the new things that you've done, like the live streaming that Stromquist brought on board, and the incredible dimension of training and exposure that provided. Why don't you cover that real quick?
Well, as you know, we play a lot with the video stuff, and we think getting people trained on their schedule is just a key piece because everybody is sort of downsized. Everybody's extremely busy, and how do you get your people trained? And for a long time, part of ControlTrends was founded on the fact of, hey, why reinvent the wheel? So if you get something like how to calibrate a pneumatic thermostat, for instance, create the video, make it available, accessible, so that technicians can get that information when they need it. We're taking that a step further now, Kenny, where you're doing live streaming now where somebody can actually log in and watch a training class, interact with the instructor via chat so they can have their questions asked. So we do that. We finally got the technology right in such a way, Kenny, that we feel like the quality is good enough. And then we're able to archive those so you can go back and you can see those afterwards. So that's a huge piece. The other thing we did this year was Johnson Controls Tech Talk. Johnson partnered with us. We used Google Hangouts for that. I think we had 4 episodes of Johnson Controls Tech Talk. We're going to continue to do that with Johnson and other vendors in 2015. But I think a trend and a need in the industry is how do you get to the people trained? How do you make the information accessible? We talked a bit about the fact with wearable technology, you're going to have access that way. But we're going to continue to create great training content.
Well, super, Eric, and I tell you what, I was very impressed because I was on those 2 of your streaming training sessions, and I can't believe how easy it was to interact. I mean, I could hear everything, see everything perfectly like I was there, and then when there was an objection or a question, I got to see the dialogue going on there, and then I could type in my own question. So, I mean, it was very, very intuitive and interactive, and I think it's going to be a big thing in the future. I think
the other big trend that we tracked, we started tracking it in 2013. It's grown even more in 2014, is the whole internet cybersecurity issue. We had a couple interviews with Fred Gordy and Mark Peacock, some industry experts. We'll continue to track that, but I don't see that going away anytime soon. Do you, Kenny?
No, what a year it was, Eric. You talk about the probably the most enlightening experience we've all saw in 2014 was the Target hack and what that meant. That actually happened last year, but the impact went through 2014. It just kept like a Doppler effect. It kept each new information that we learned from it told more and more of the vulnerabilities. And we put in maybe 11, I believe, cybersecurity posts that all of them were good. Mark Peacock was giving us some good content. Like you said, the gentleman from McKinney's.
Fred Gordy.
Fred Gordy, very bright stuff that you need to know, but it all began with a dialogue. The most important thing was to pretend, not to pretend anymore, or that, it wasn't going to happen to you. What Fred Gordy said, he says, you better be ready to the point where if something happens, you already can, you can do disaster control and containment. You're going to implement your insurance policy because you're going to get hit.
Okay, well, with that, Kenny, I think it's probably good. Let's transition to our first guest.
I'd love to, Eric. Our first guest is George Thomas from Contemporary Controls. This is quite a story that few people have the personal and professional moxie it takes to build an enduring company from the humble origins of the microprocessor business that George started in his basement. And now he's thrived to be an international manufacturer of industrial building and commercial automation components. Contemporary Controls has a great history, and we're very happy to have George on the show. Welcome to the show, George.
Welcome, George.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be on the show.
Well, George, if you listen to Control Trends at all, you know Kenny and I are big, big fans of yours. We think the world of you and your company and what you guys do. So a couple things right off the bat. We want to say thank you very much. Contemporary Controls has come on as a platinum sponsor for the 2014 Control Trends Awards, George. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. We've been to all three of the shows. This will be our third, of course. And we this year it's going to be our 40th anniversary, and it's a big deal for us. We'll be celebrating 2015 throughout the year, 40 years in business, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to kick off the effort by participating again in the awards dinner at the AHR and to interact with the industry. It's a great opportunity, and it worked out very well for us.
I'll tell you, George, 40 years is quite an accomplishment, and we're going to talk a lot more about your company and your products as this interview goes forward a little bit, but also want to say congratulations to you personally. You're up nominated for a couple of awards as your company is for several products. So, Kenny, let's break it down for some of the awards George and his team are nominated for.
Certainly, Eric. Contemporary Controls is nominated for 5 categories, and the one that I am very happy to see is how well Contemporary Controls is doing with the peripheral product of the year. And I'll tell you what, Contemporary Controls to me is about networks and routers. George, tell us about some of your products, and then where you see Contemporary Controls' role in the building automation industry.
Well, right now our role has been pretty much supporting all the efforts in providing a complete solution out there. We have niche opportunities that we've been effective at, and a lot of people do know us by our BACnet router. So in that category, we have 2 product lines. We have the BAS automation line, which we call Building on BACnet. We're a big proponent of BACnet. We're a big proponent of open standards. We believe in it, and we participate in the Plug Fest. I'm also a member on the BACnet Education Committee, and we provide these routers, gateways, controllers that support the BACnet standard. So most of the people know us for our BAS router, which routes BACnet MSCP to BACnet IP. And then standalone BACnet routers they can offload traffic usually handled by building controllers such as the Jace, allowing for a fewer number of Jaces views on a job. It also allows the system integrator to locate routers closer to a convenient Ethernet drop instead of home running MSTP wiring to the location of the Jace. You'll probably even notice we are a big proponent of IP networks. We believe network controls will migrate to IP, but there's still a lot of field bus connections out there that we have to connect to. So the BAS router really fits into that niche. The other thing we do is we have to address Modbus. Modbus is still very important in our industry. We see it in both RTUs and Modbus TCP protocols, and that will be a gateway to our BACnet IP system. So we make a device called the BAS Gateway, and what we do a little bit differently is we've been providing these device profiles. We've been providing them to our customers. They can download it from our website, and they can load them into the BAS Gateway and run with it. And if you need a unique device profile, you can contact us and we'll develop it. Right now we have about 40 on our website, and there's a lot of Modbus devices out there, and we're always happy when somebody asks for one that we have in our library. But that's what we're doing, is we're building up our library of device profiles.
Awesome.
And then finally we have the Advanced Control 20. It's a unitary controller that is BACnet IP compliant while complying with the B-ASC device profile. It's freely programmable using Sedona framework, and you can use your Workbench tool for programming. We use both the Tritium-developed components and our own set of components, and our customers tell us the kind of components they need to match their applications, and we provide that for them. And then finally, we have this, when you have all these BACnet devices, you got to connect them up to IP. We have our Control Link, Ethernet built for buildings product line. It's managed and unmanaged Ethernet switches, media converters, IP routers, and power over Ethernet injectors and splitters. And we even have a device called a diagnostic switch, which is used at PlugFest because you can see all the traffic, and using tools like Wireshark, you can see all the traffic so that you can do network analysis. And then we also have another niche product, the UL864 smoke and fire rated Ethernet switches, which are used by the OEMs. We can't carry the complete listing. We have to work with the OEMs for the listing, but our product is RU recognized, so that it makes it easier for doing smoke and fire with Ethernet. So that's kind of a roundup of the products that we have. 2 product lines, Bass Automation and our Control Link.
Very cool,
Right.
George. So what sort of markets do you serve, George? Is it commercial and industrial, or just commercial?
It is. The industrial side is, for some reason, there's a split between industrial and commercial. Which is interesting. You have analog ins and analog outs on the industrial side. You got analog ins and analog outs on the building side. But if you say you are an industrial supplier, the building people feel, well, you're going to be expensive. So we say the words building when we're dealing with this audience, and industrial when we're dealing with strictly people who are using PLCs and devices like that. So we do have a split of activities, but over the last few years, or many years, we've been concentrating on building side. There's just been more buildings, and as the industrial plants kind of disappear from the United States, it's not like the old days. So what we've been seeing is more buildings being built for the service industry and more opportunities for automation in that sector. So that's how we kind of divide up. We do make products for both sides, and we've always done. And a lot of people know us from our ArcNet days. And with ArcNet was very good to us. We had promoted it. We were one of the leaders in it. We wrote a book on it. And it was used in building automation for quite a while, but now Ethernet's taken over. And we're moving with the trends, and we're supporting Ethernet.
We sure are. George, I was just amazed that not only do you have a prolific history, 40 years plus, but you also put a lot of new stuff out. Tell us about the book that you intend to give away at the 2015 AHR. If people come by your booth, you have a special book that basically summarizes network communications for buildings.
And what we did is that about 15, 20 years ago, we started a newsletter, and we want to do a supplement in the newsletter that was strictly technical. It's going to be non-commercial, but it's going to be technical. And we called those the extension articles because they were an extension of our newsletter. And at that time, we mailed the newsletters out, and we produced this insert. And we disciplined ourselves to come up with one of these every 2 months, and it was a lot of work. But we based it all on open standards. Ethernet, we talked about Ethernet, IP networks. We go to the RFCs or to the IEEE standards for the relevant documents. And we've done these for many years. So we decided, because a lot of them were in print, they were not electronic, we decided we could put these together in a book and update it accordingly. And we did have to do a little homework because the standards have evolved, and we did it. So we're coming up with a book. So the book is called Network Communications for Buildings, and what we did, it's going to be roughly about 100 pages. and it has been updated, and it's still an overview. It is an introduction, so a system integrator will get a feel for what he's getting into. We are amazed that a lot of these guys who've done Modbus are not aware of what's in Modbus or what it means. They're very surprised at that. So we have a section on Modbus. We have a section on BACnet. I'm on the BACnet Education Committee, and I learned a lot by just being with those guys. And then on the Ethernet stuff, we have gone through, when we started this, the Ethernet standard is only 1,500 pages. It's up to 3,700 pages. So we can't cover everything, but we can tell you a lot about going from 10 to 100 to gigabit Ethernet. So that's what we're doing. We're putting it together as a book. We're giving it out to the industry because I've got a feeling that a lot of people don't know that we do publish a lot of these things on our website, and they may not have gone up there. So it's a chance to hand out. We're going to give it out at HR and also at the CGNA Awards. And it's our give back to the industry after 40 years. This is what we can do. It's intended for buildings. We took out a lot of the real-time Ethernet things that we'll put in only for industrial sides, but what is relevant to this industry, we want to include.
When I think about contemporary controls, and for our listeners out there who might not be familiar with your company, one of the things about you guys is you guys really are givers. You guys have quite an educational library of videos. I mean, your BACnet series is probably one of the best educational video series I've seen. Speak, if you would, George, a little bit about some of the training things that you have video-wise on your website.
Well, we have, in addition to some PowerPoint presentations and application notes, we do our application notes, of course. The videos to me, it's addressing the young generation. This is a generation very mobile. They're a visual generation, and that's how you have to reach them, is through videos. And we try to cut them down to putting in some message that won't be more than about 5 minutes. We feel that's the attention span. And when you're on a job site, and if something helps you, that you can solve a problem, if you can at least get internet access out of your building, you can get to our website and maybe learn something about something to do with a router or something about MSTP you didn't know about that you can use to pick up a couple of pointers when you're even on the job site. So we do try to do the videos. We produce them. We write the scripts for them. And we try to do a nice job of it to make it fast, concise, and to be of some value.
Well, George, I want to compliment you on that because Kenny and I know a thing or two about what goes into making a video, and there's a lot of work to that. So I have a real deep appreciation for your give back to the industry with that. And the website they can go to see those is?
Just go to ccontrols.com and then go there's a learning center, there's resource sections. You can go there and you'll find a video library. We have please go through the whole website. You'll see the tabs there and go to the resource sections and you can learn a lot about the technologies.
Cool.
And I can appreciate what you go through, Ken and Eric, on videos. When I found out you guys were doing videos, I had complete sympathy for you. It's a lot of work.
Yes, sir.
Now I know why they give awards for editing.
Sure.
So.
Thank you, George. Appreciate that. Well, George, you're up for 2 awards personally. You're up for the PID Award, which stands for Passion, Integrity, and Dedication, and also for the Executive of the Year for a small manufacturer. George, tell our listeners, how did you get in the business? Tell us the George Thomas story.
Well, the George Thomas story was my background was actually probably started in consumer electronics with Motorola when they were in the consumer electronics business. When I got off of active duty, I was trained in school and both in air radio repairman and Marine Corps, and then I was in the reserves, and I was going to college at the time. And at that time, I was working and going into college at night. And actually, Motorola was very good to me by offering tuition reimbursement plan. That's how I got into school. I was able to save enough money to finish off my undergrad at IIT. And then when I was over there, they signed me to a project as a technician for them to maintain some CNC equipment. Well, then numerical control at the time. And we were in a lab called the Digital Instrumentation Lab. And I didn't even know what digital was. And it was something really unique. And our boss, Stan Feldman, great engineer, wanted to be known by digital instrumentation. He felt that was a new frontier. So that was a big break for me because, first of all, I was able to work with engineers. I liked what they did. I said, hey, I want to be one. And that's why I went and finished up my schooling and got my both in graduate and my undergrad and grad at Illinois Institute of Technology, and then it went on from there. The market was terrible in 1971 coming out of school, and so I had to take a less than desirable job. But then after a while, I was able to get into with Johnson & Johnson baby products, and they were doing controls, instrumentation. We were building diaper plants, and so I got to learn about building a plant and building equipment. I was responsible for some of the controls on the equipment, and that was a nice opportunity, and met some great people there. It was a great company to work for. And then I saw an ad for a company called Datalogix. What Datalogix did was they were involved in text editing systems, and they're using computers, and I was enthralled by that. And they actually had one of the first microcomputers, and we had a boss there who wanted to pursue that. I did it for a while, and about a year later, I got fired from that job, and I thought it was a good time to do my own thing now. And so I always wanted to be in my own business. I was going to want to be a consultant, so I started, put the shingle out, went to all my old my old companies, and decided, hey, you remember that job that nobody would fund? I'll do it for you. And that's how I got rolling. And it was mostly in the industrial side. They didn't do any of the building side. It wasn't until much later, we were in the Instrument Society of America show, and we're in one of the worst sections of the building, and a guy came by, and he saw we had ArcNet. It was around about 1987. And he said, you know, Johnson Controls is using ArcNet. And I said, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea they were using them. So you ought to call on them. And that's how it started with getting into building automations. And we ended up doing adapters for the NCMs. And we also did a fire and smoke-rated ArcNet hub for Johnson. And that's how we got through the back door in building automation through Johnson Controls. And then it went on from there, and we continued to do ArcNet. And at one point, all the companies that had ArcNet and building automation were a customer of ours. It was that prevalent, ALC and so on, and Train. And then eventually as Ethernet came in place, we had to find another opportunity because the adapters are no longer adapters in the motherboard. They were now built in the microcontroller. And so then we started to migrate more toward Ethernet. We were always aware of Ethernet, but Ethernet was always a more expensive solution. It wasn't until much later. ArcNet, people don't realize ArcNet was cheaper than Ethernet, and that's why it was very popular. But then later on, with the advances in Ethernet, it became in the controller, and it made a completely different story. So that's how we did it. We had 1 foot in the industrial automation side, and we got 1 foot into building automation. We enjoyed building automation. There's all kinds of opportunities. It's a bit more fragmented. We can deal with just about anybody. When you're on a job, you got mixed equipment. You can take from anybody. You pick and choose to get the job working, and that's what system integrators do, get the job working. So that's kind of how we went into business. There was a love to be in the business, and then there's a continued love to stay in the business.
Our guest is George Thomas, Contemporary Controls. George, I tell you, I love hearing you talk because I hear the passion in your voice. It's obvious you love this industry and what you're doing, which is great to hear. And it's also great to hear, George, that you guys are sort of giving back and teaching the younger people. I know Kenny and I, as well as Ken Sinclair and some others in the industry, are sort of on a campaign to try and attract younger talent to our industry. We think it's a great industry, and seems like you guys are a great resource for some of the youngsters out there that might be looking at a career. And would you have anything to say to them? I mean, great industry to be in, or what?
Oh, I think it is a great industry. I think it's going to be a growing industry. As you move toward IP networks, and there's going to be more. And these kids know IP networks. They know phones. They know computers. They are already set. Where we had to learn all these things. They're already set. They have some basic tools. They just need to know some of the physical, mechanical things that occur in terms of comfort control, and learn that. You can't hide from the physics, but once you do that, there's a lot of opportunities. And plus, with an internet society, all connected, there's all kinds of ideas out there, many of which we haven't figured on. So for them, I think it's a great opportunity to pursue. They would fit in well, and they should consider it. I think it's a good career, and there'll be plenty of opportunities as we migrate toward a connected community. All the ramifications of being connected, like security and cybersecurity and those kind of things. There's plenty of opportunities.
How does George Thomas relax?
Well, I probably don't relax. I'm not the golfer. I do have clubs, though, but I'm not the golfer. But I'm intrigued by history. Anything with history, I do. When we do vacations, we've had the opportunity, my wife and I, to see many parts of the world, and I do go there. I have friends around the world, too, that we've made, friends through our acquaintance, through business. And it's really wonderful to be able to go into different places and know a lot of people already. And we've had some long-term relationships and things. So travel would be one. I'm a bit of a sportsman, so I do like doing the fishing trip to Canada and those kind of things.
Great.
And but history, anything with history. I'll do all the Civil War sites. I'm a student of World War II. I have a website that I dedicated to my uncle who was killed in the Pacific in World War II. And we did research with that. I met a bunch of people just through that. Other children and grandchildren of servicemen, and trying to find out more about their ancestors. And so I had a complete website on the Battle of Peleliu. So those are kind of things I like to do. It's not relaxing, but I enjoy it.
All right, there you have it. That's George Thomas from Contemporary Controls. You guys are going to be at the AHR show. It's going to be a party there. George and his team are celebrating 40 years of fantastic service. George, you guys have a booth number at the AHR people can find you at?
We'll be at booth 3531, so please come and see us.
3531, they're going to have books to give out. It's a special time for Contemporary Controls, a special time for ControlTrends, because George and his team will be at the 2014 ControlTrends Awards as well. So definitely come out, visit George and Contemporary Controls at their booth, come to the ControlTrends Awards, and remember to vote. George, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks,
George Thomas. Contemporary Controls at ccontrols.com. Check them out. Okay, Kenny, here's another trend we're tracking. So let's talk about the other trend that you and I and Ken Sinclair have sort of gotten on the bandwagon with. We call it the young guns trend. Let's talk about that.
Right, Eric. We're taking piggybacking off the initiative that Ken St. Clair began with his collaboration, and that was that how are we going to pass on information and experience to the industry, and then how are we going to attract new talent to the industry, especially with the IoT, such an enormous opportunity there, so that we can bring positive attention to our industry. We went and looked at some of these very talented, successful people that were under 30 years of age, and we interviewed a few of them, we talked to them, and we realized that we need to reverse engineer some of these things that these kids believed in. Our next guest is a very special person from Hepta Controls, HCS, out of Canada. His name is Jason Houck, and he is the Director of IT and Integration. He is what we call a young gun, Eric. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Yeah, Jason.
Hey, thanks, guys, for having me.
Glad to have you here. We met Jason at the IBcon Realcomm show last year. Jason, we were just totally blown away, man. You know, you're a young guy, which in and of itself is impressive, given that Ken and I are both old guys now. But,
Hey.
But you had just a fantastic knowledge. We watched you at your booth, and we watched the way you interact with customers. And we talked to Scott Cochran about you. You already have made quite a name for yourself in this industry. So we're really glad you could take a few minutes to speak with us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for the appreciation.
HCS, Haptic Control Systems, has just been amazing. They're on a run. They were the 2014 winner of the IBcon Most Intelligent Office Portfolio. They were the 2014 Tritium Niagara Summit Innovator of the Year Award. And their concept is systems without boundaries. And I think Jason has to tell us how he got started. How did Jason get into it, and how HEPTA became a Mastem Systems integrator?
Well, it all started back in '93. My father had a HVAC mechanical company at that time and ended up on selling it and got into the controls industry. And back in that day, it was DOS and I think Windows 3.1, if anybody even remembers that anymore. And his first job, he needed assistance on doing the programming and basically computers. So my brother and myself, him being in high school, and I think I was still in grade school, assisted him on this project to get the company moving, whether it was the graphics and programming. And back in those days, like I said, it was DOS. We had to learn our DOS commands. And that was the initiation into the controls industry for us.
Wow, so you started in grade school.
That's the life of a family business.
Well, that's good. Well, tell our listeners a little bit about HEPTA Systems. What should they know about HEPTA?
Well, HEPTA Systems was, like I said, founded back in 1993. We were originally a Sarnia, Ontario, Canada-based company. And then in 2009, we expanded into the Michigan market through Detroit, and we have been mostly a service-based company with a mind on integration. We've always had the concept that if we're working on systems, we have to know all facets of the system. So whether it's a Johnson Controls or Honeywell, we have that talent in-house to work on it, and that's where we've strived.
Well, Scott Cochran said that there's pretty much nothing that you guys have not integrated. So you guys, like you say, unparalleled with what you guys are doing, Jason. But listen, Ken and I are on a mission to try and attract younger people into the industry. What is it about the industry that you love?
I love the industry because it's the ever-evolving technology. Every day there's a new technology coming out that we have to vet and make sure that it's good for our customers and fits the scope that we need it to do. The challenges that arise with legacy technologies and moving forward to today's standard. Then it's always looking and finding a better way to do something that has been looked at the same way for the past 20 years. Always learning.
What Ken St. Clair believes in is that the structural change to the education system is we're not going to go to 4-year degrees. What's going to happen is the smart people are going to get on their IoT devices and use IoT technology to learn exactly what they need, to self-teach themselves. So autodidactism is self-education. And automated building editor Ken St. Clair's critical evaluation of how self-learning is rapidly becoming such a necessary and essential tool for the HVAC. We work with people all the time, and even in our own business, we can't get people to do the self-education unless they really, truly are passionate about it. So what's triggered here is that most people don't want to learn unless they're being paid to learn. And you don't learn with that same passion when you're getting paid because, you kind of pace yourself. In other words, what is the desire? What is the fire in the stomach that makes you drive yourself to stay up at 12 o'clock until you found out how to do something? And is this just a rarity or is this like a coming trend with people of your generation?
It's that the Linux theory, right? You give the source code and you're involved in creating something. Uh-huh. And it's that involvement to be, hey, I did this, the self-accomplishment. And I think that's where it comes in is when you're being paid to do it, it's an accomplishment of the company, but when you figure it out on your own, it's that self-accomplishment.
I was talking with one of the the local trade school people here who they do a lot of IT people. They teach a lot of IT people, and she talks about how disillusioned they get. They run off what they call the cubicle farm, right? They get a job and they're in a cubicle. They're doing sort of the redundant task over and over again. And I think that one of the things about our industry, or let me ask you the question. It seems like one of the things you're saying, and one of the things that our industry offers is a wide variety of challenges. Is it ever the same thing every day?
If it was the same thing every day, I'd have no reason to get out of bed.
Nice. So it seems like we're just sort of at the cusp too of the technology in the building automation things. It seems like every day it's something new, but it seems like the vast frontiers hadn't even been conquered yet. Fair statement?
That is a very fair statement, and that's where even when we're trying to attract new talent, we almost have to sell our industry to the people that we need, because we need the people that have PHP and Java and talents like that in our industry. And to get them into the industry, you have to sell ourselves to say, hey, this is cool, right? Like, we have to show them all the stuff that we've done, and then pique their interest and say, this is where we could head with it, And it's very difficult to get a lot of those people into the industry.
I think you just got to tell them, Jason, when they talk about they work for Google, you just look at them and say, yeah, well, we control Google's building.
Right? Their data center wouldn't be running without us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we think our industry really is glamorous. We think the guys that are and girls that are in our industry are rock stars, and it's like the best kept secret. And I think from a career standpoint, it's the best kept secret. We just got to get the word out. So what would you say to somebody who's maybe in school and looking at a career? Sell me on why I should get in the industry, and then tell me the steps I should take to be able to go to work for a company like yours and have a career with you.
Well, like you said, it's an untapped market. If you're ambitious, intelligent, and an IT person or even interested in that, and you can run with it, you'll be a rock star in this industry, because there's such a lack of that talent, and it's required. And some of the skills that people can look for is definitely networking standards. I think our industry is lacking in that area a lot. Knowledge of communication protocols, and definitely because of our industry being kind of that IoT and building master systems integrator, you don't have to know exactly every piece of every system, but you want to know just enough. So like that, the different communication protocols, like the mod buses out there, the back nets, even just knowing baud rates,
Make a big
Awesome.
difference.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Not to beleaguer the point, but with the new technology and the synthesis of all the technologies coming together, what do you see being the next biggest impact in our industry?
I honestly think it's the new technologies that are going to be a game changer. When people can bring smart technologies into their home, like having smart light switches, like the Nest thermostats and stuff like that, people are going to start to expect that in the corporate and commercial space. And I think you're going to see the Googles and people like that and Apple really trying to dive into our industry and have that turnkey technology with the call home strategies. It's going to be a killer to some of the technologies that are out there today.
What has been the most significant experience you've had with home automation that you've taken into our building automation industry?
Actually, it's the out of the box. You throw it on the wall and it's up and running. It's integration at its easiest, simplest process. You could screw in a light bulb and now you've got an integrated lighting system. The ease of it.
All right, so Jason, a question for you. So when you look at systems integrators today, what to be a really good integrator, what are the skills you have to have? And the second part of the question is going to be, how do you see those skills changing or evolving over the next 4 or 5 years?
The main skills as a master systems integrator that you're always going to have, you're always going to require that HVAC systems background, because it's the heart of the system. And if you don't know what that cooling tower or VAV is supposed to do, then you'll be lost. It's electrical. Like most of our techs carry dual trade tickets. They're all HVAC technicians and electricians. But we never run our own conduit, or we'll never work on a piece of mechanical equipment. We're straight controls. Definitely networking is big. We got a couple guys in our company, including myself, that are CCNA, Cisco Certified Network Associates. Computer languages, the Java, the PHP, HTML. Those are ones that are going to really hit home, especially when you're going to be looking into getting into the custom programming and custom code. And one that's always never hurt me is my DOS commands that I still use today.
Things changing a lot for a systems integrator over the next 4 to 5 years, or if you think you've got those skills you just mentioned, you're going to be okay?
I think there's going to be more of a push for those skills, and the people that don't have those skills will get left behind. But I do see the products coming out more plug and play, so that you can do that 100 location rollout with a plug and play system. All right.
Nice.
Not every system's going to have to be able to require a site visit, or it's going to go real cloud based. If you don't have those networking and computer skills, it'll be rough.
So that's going to be a big differentiator for you to have, which oddly enough, or not oddly enough, which fortunately enough is a lot of the skills that some of the young people we're trying to attract into our industry are getting in school. So they would just need to transition and learn the HVAC side of it, and they could be good to go.
Exactly. Like when I got my CCNA when I was in grade 11. It was offered at my high school. And
wow.
I figured, wow, why not? College certified course at high school? Let's do it.
So, Jason, who are some of the influences in your life?
Well, in the industry is definitely, I would say Scott Cochran has been a influence, and I look up to the way that he has grown in the industry and been looked up to. And even you guys, what you guys do to teach the public about what our industry is, and that whole learning phase is fantastic. Bringing it to a social media level is amazing. And definitely Ken Sinclair, he's one of those old guys in the industry, and he's got some definite insight.
Well,
and then on the personal level, definitely my father in the industry, also as a personal life. And one of our customers is Dan Gilbert. You got to definitely look up to that guy. A billionaire, and just his way of thinking is amazing.
Very, very cool, Jason. Our guest today is Jason Houck from Hepta Systems. We're going to be hearing a lot from Jason in the future. Jason, any chance you're going to be out at the AHR show this year?
Yes, definitely. Going to be looking for you guys and seeing what new technologies are out there.
Well, we would love to have you be our guest at the 2014 ControlTrends Awards. So if you're willing to come, we'd love to have you.
I'll see you there, guys.
All right, great.
Great.
Jason, thanks so much. One last question. Let our listeners know how to find you. What website's best for them to contact you guys at?
You can contact us at www.hepta, HEPTA, systems.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at HCS_Jason.
Very cool, Jason. Thanks for taking some time to speak with us.
Thanks, Jason.
Thanks, guys.
It's going to be an exciting 2015, Kenny. We thank our ControlTrends community for their support. Our viewership almost doubled, or maybe more than doubled in 2014, so we really appreciate your sponsorship and your patronage. We will continue to give you control news you can use. So with that, Kenny Smyers, I think it's another week. January is upon us, 2015. We're going to have a big year. We got some surprises coming up on the show, coming forward. A special thanks to our guest, George Thomas, Contemporary Controls, and Jason Houck, Hepta Systems. Special thanks to our community. Have a great rest of the day, and remember, stay in control.
Indeed, Eric.
Indeed, Kenny Smyers.